What would you do if the man you loved most became the reason you had to disappear? 7 months pregnant. Amy. Moretti walked into Boston's most private restaurant, expecting one quiet dinner with her husband Dante. Moretti, the mafia king every powerful man feared. Instead, she found him in a candlelit booth with the governor's daughter, his hand too close to hers, his silence louder than any confession. Amy didn't scream. She didn't beg. She went home through the rain, placed her wedding ring beside a sonogram photo, wrote one letter, and vanished before midnight. But this is not just a story about betrayal. It is about power, motherhood, family secrets, and a love that must either change or destroy everything it touches. Stay until the end, because the letter Dante finds will break him. Like this video and comment where you're watching from. The letter on Dante Moretti's desk did not begin the story. It only revealed the wound that had been bleeding for years. 3 years earlier, Amelia Hartwell had not known enough to be afraid of him. That was the first thing Dante noticed. Most people in Boston knew his name before they knew his face. Moretti was not just a family name whispered in restaurants and courtrooms. It was a warning passed between dock workers, politicians, nightclub owners, union men, judges, and ambitious fools who mistook expensive suits for protection. His grandfather had built the first pieces of the family empire moving liquor through the harbor during Prohibition. His father had dressed that empire in better language shipping companies, private security construction contracts, campaign donations, charity galas, and enough polished handshakes to make the dirt beneath them look respectable. Dante inherited all of it before he was ready and mastered it before anyone could notice he had ever been young. By 35, he was the man powerful men lowered their voices around. He owned no crown, but people still stepped aside as if he did. He did not need to shout. He had learned early that true power was quiet. A pause could threaten more than a gun. A smile could end a negotiation. A phone call placed at the right hour could make an enemy disappear from every room that mattered. Then he walked into a public school art room in Dorchester and met a woman who handed him a box of crayons. The Moretti Foundation had sponsored the school's winter arts program because Victoria Moretti believed public kindness was useful when federal attention grew too warm. Cameras loved children. Donors loved murals. City councilmen loved photographs where they could crouch beside smiling students and pretend they cared about broken windows before election season. Dante arrived late because a man named Carlo Venn had decided that morning not to honor a debt. By noon, Carlo had remembered his obligations. By 3, Dante was in the back of a black town car wiping blood from one knuckle with a white cloth while his driver told him the school principal had called twice. He expected gratitude when he arrived. He expected fear too. He found Amelia Hartwell standing in the middle of a classroom bright with paper snowflakes, paint jars drying clay ornaments, and 20 children working at small tables. She wore a soft gray sweater pushed to her elbows, black pants dusted with chalk, and no jewelry except a thin silver locket at her throat. Her brown hair was pinned carelessly with strands falling loose around her cheeks. There was blue paint on the side of her wrist and a small crease between her eyebrows that told Dante she was not impressed. The room noticed him the way rooms always did. Adults straightened. Conversations fell. A volunteer mother dropped a stack of construction paper. The principal hurried forward with a smile that looked painful. Before she could speak, Amelia looked Dante up and down. "You're late," she said. The principal went pale. Dante studied Amelia Hartwell. People had insulted him before, but never with that kind of honest disappointment. Never as if his power had failed to meet a very basic standard of human decency. "I had business," he said. "So do they." Amelia nodded toward the children. "They're making paper whales for the hallway display. You can either stand near the banner for your photo, or you can sit down and help Marcus cut fins because he's about to glue his sleeve to the table." A little boy at the nearest table looked up, glue stick in one hand, sleeve already suspiciously close to disaster. Dante did not move. Amelia held out a box of crayons. The room became so quiet he could hear the old radiator ticking beneath the window. He could have ignored her. He could have posed for the photograph, written another check, and left before anyone in the room remembered how to breathe. He could have reminded her with nothing but a look that men like him were not spoken to that way. Instead, something loosened inside him. Not enough to make him safe, just enough to make him curious. He removed his coat, folded it over the back of a chair, and sat beside the little boy. Marcus stared at him. Dante stared at the paper whale. Amelia placed a glue stick in his hand. "Try not to look like you're negotiating with the whale," she said quietly. Dante glanced up. She did not flinch. That was how it began. Not with candlelight. Not with violins. Not with a woman pretending she did not know he was dangerous. It began with a teacher who cared more about a child's art project than a mafia king's reputation. After that day, Dante found reasons to return. The art room needed new tables. He paid for them. The roof leaked near the music classroom. He sent a crew before the next rain. The children needed winter coats. Boxes arrived before the first snowstorm. The playground fence had rusted through in 2 places. By the end of the week, the old fence was gone, and a new one stood shining along the cracked pavement. Amelia thanked the foundation every time. Never him. It irritated him more than it should have. One afternoon, he found her alone in the classroom after dismissal. The winter light had gone soft and blue behind the windows. Tiny paper stars hung from string across the ceiling. She was kneeling on the floor, scrubbing red paint from a tile with a sponge that had lost the will to live. "You know," Dante said from the doorway, "most people thank me when I write checks." Amelia did not look up. "Most people probably want another check. And you don't. I want my students to stop thinking broken things are normal." The words landed harder than he expected. Dante stepped into the classroom. The air smelled like tempera paint dust and children's soap. It was too warm, too bright, too full of evidence that ordinary people built beauty without needing permission from men like him. "You always talk to donors like this?" he asked. "Only the ones who look like they need it." He crossed his arms. "And what do I look like? I need." Amelia finally looked up. "A person who tells you no and lives." Dante laughed. It came out before he could stop it low and surprised Rusty from lack of use. He had laughed in public before when the situation required it. He had smiled across dinner tables where men lied into crystal glasses. But this was different. This laugh had nothing to gain. Amelia smiled a little as if she knew exactly what she had done and had no intention of apologizing. Their first coffee was not supposed to be a date. Dante told himself he wanted to discuss expanding the arts program. Amelia agreed because the school needed supplies, but she chose a crowded cafe in South Boston, arrived 10 minutes early, paid for her own tea, and took a table near the window with her back to the wall. Dante noticed everything. "You don't trust me," he said as he sat across from her. Amelia stirred honey into her cup. "I don't know you. Most people think they do. Most people are lazy." He smiled. She did not. That made him smile more. Outside, traffic moved through wet streets. Inside, the cafe windows fogged around the edges and the air smelled like espresso and cinnamon. Amelia kept both hands around her mug as if she liked the warmth but refused to depend on it. Dante gave her careful pieces of himself. His father, Vincent Moretti, had been stern-disciplined and tired in a way Dante had only understood after inheriting his chair. His mother, Victoria, was harder. She believed love should improve a family's position or remain private enough not to weaken it. Dante had been raised in houses with locked studies, quiet servants, and portraits of dead men whose eyes seemed to follow every mistake. He had learned to keep his face still before he learned to shave. He had learned that fear lasted longer than affection. He had learned that a man who hesitated gave someone else time to aim. Amelia listened without trying to fix him. That was new, too. When he asked about her life, she answered in plain language. Her mother had died when Amelia was 17. Her father, Robert Hartwell, had never fully recovered from the grief or from the stroke that followed years later. Her younger sister, Grace, had worked too many hours and pretended she was fine. Amelia had gone through college on scholarships, part-time jobs, stubbornness, and sleep she could not afford to lose. She became a teacher because she wanted children to see proof that color could survive in places adults forgot. Dante did not understand that kind of goodness. He wanted to. On their third evening together, he walked her home after dinner along the Charles River. The wind came off the water sharp enough to cut through his coat. Amelia's scarf kept slipping loose, and she laughed every time it tried to escape her. Dante reached to fix it. She went still for half a heartbeat. He noticed. He noticed everything. "I would never hurt you," he said. Amelia looked at him beneath the streetlights. Her eyes were dark and steady. "Men say that like hurt only means hands." Dante had no answer. For a moment the city moved around them. Tires hissed over wet pavement. A cyclist passed with a blinking red light. Somewhere across the river, music spilled from an open door and vanished in the wind. "My life is not clean, Amelia," he said. She looked out at the black water. "Neither is anyone's. Mine has blood in it." She turned back to him. "Then don't ask me to pretend it's wine." He should have walked away from her then. Some disciplined part of him knew that. Amelia Hartwell did not belong near the Moretti name. She was too direct, too warm, too unwilling to mistake wealth for safety. She looked at him as if the man beneath the power still had choices, and that was dangerous because Dante had spent years surviving by pretending choice was a luxury for other people. Instead, he kissed her beside the river while the wind moved around them like a warning. For a brief and foolish season, Dante let himself believe wanting something beautiful did not mean he would ruin it. Victoria Moretti met Amelia 2 months later. The Moretti estate sat in Brookline behind black iron gates and old trees trimmed too perfectly to look alive. The house was white stone and tall windows with a circular drive where expensive cars came and went like sharks gliding through dark water. Inside, the floors shone like still ice. Oil portraits lined the hallway. Every room smelled faintly of lilies polish and old money that had learned to speak softly. Amelia wore a deep blue dress Dante had bought her after losing a 20-minute argument about the price. "I feel like I'm wearing someone's mortgage," she whispered as they walked toward the dining room. "You look beautiful," Dante said. "That was not my concern." "I know." Victoria waited beneath a portrait of Dante's grandfather. She was silver-haired, elegant, and still as a blade laid carefully on white linen. She kissed Dante on both cheeks, then turned to Amelia. "So, Victoria said you're the teacher." Amelia smiled politely. "And you're Dante's mother." Victoria's mouth curved. "For now, we are both accurate." Dinner was served in a room so long that conversation had to travel like a formal announcement. Victoria asked questions that sounded harmless until they landed. Where did Amelia's family summer? They did not. What clubs did her father belong to? None. Had Amelia considered leaving teaching now that Dante could provide for her? No. Did Amelia understand the obligations that came with loving a man like Dante? Amelia set her wine glass down. "I'm learning Dante," she said. "I'm not marrying an obligation." Across the table, Dante went very still. Victoria looked at him. He said nothing. It was the first time Amelia felt his silence as a wall. Later that night, while Dante took a call in the library, Victoria found Amelia near the staircase. The house had gone quiet around them. Staff moved somewhere out of sight, trained to become invisible. Victoria stood beside Amelia and looked at the family portraits. "Do you know what happens to women who marry into families like ours?" Victoria asked. Amelia kept her voice steady. "They become family." Victoria smiled without warmth. "No, dear. They become useful or they become removable." Amelia should have left then. Years later, she would remember that sentence with a clarity that made her chest tighten. She would remember the coldness of the hallway, the soft glow of the chandelier, the way Victoria's perfume lingered after she walked away. She would remember Dante returning from the library, touching her elbow, asking if she was ready to go. She would remember choosing not to tell him what his mother had said. That was the first small surrender. There would be others. Dante proposed after 8 months. Not in a restaurant. Not in public. Not beneath cameras or chandeliers, or the hungry gaze of people who wanted proof that even his love life served the family image. He took Amelia back to her classroom after hours where the children's paintings hung from string near the windows, and construction paper snowflakes turned slowly in the heat from the vents. Amelia found him standing beside the supply cabinet holding a small velvet box. She stopped in the doorway. "Dante." "I know," he said. "You hate spectacle. I also hate being ambushed near finger paint." His smile was nervous. Dante Moretti nervous. That nearly broke her heart by itself. He opened the box. Inside was a simple gold band, plain and warm under the classroom lights. "No diamonds?" she asked softly. "You said if I put a chandelier on your hand, you'd throw it into the harbor." "I did say that." He took a breath. "I am not a good man." Amelia's face softened. "I know. I have done things you would not forgive if you knew the shape of them. Then why are you asking me?" "Because when I am with you, I remember there was a version of me before all this. Or maybe I imagine one. I don't know." His voice roughened. "But I want to be closer to him." Amelia looked at him for a long time. "That is not the same as changing." "No," Dante said. "But it is the first honest thing I have." She said yes with tears in her eyes and fear in her chest. Both were real. They married quietly in a small chapel outside the city. Grace stood beside Amelia crying before the music even started. Victoria sat in the front row wearing pearl gray silk and an expression suitable for a court deposition. Dante held Amelia's hand so carefully during the vows that she almost forgot the shadows waiting beyond the chapel doors. Almost. Marriage to Dante Moretti was beautiful in the beginning. He sent coffee to her school when she forgot breakfast. He learned that she hated roses but loved wildflowers because they looked like they had survived something. He discovered she slept with one foot outside the blanket and pretended not to find it charming. He watched her grade student drawings at the kitchen island and became quietly fascinated by the tiny gold stars she drew beside good effort. He touched her like reverence was something his body knew, even if his world did not. For a while, Amelia believed love could make a dangerous man gentle. But love did not stop the phone calls after midnight. It did not open the locked study in the penthouse. It did not explain why Dante's men stopped speaking when she entered the room. It did not erase the bruises across his knuckles at breakfast. When she asked where he had been, he kissed her forehead and said, "It's handled." Those 2 words became the shape of their marriage. "Why is there blood on your cuff?" "It's handled." "Why did your mother schedule my charity luncheon without asking me?" "It's handled." "Why did the nursery designer say Victoria approved the colors?" "It's handled." "Why do I feel alone in a home full of guards?" Amelia never asked that one aloud. By the 2nd year, Victoria had begun treating her less like an intruder and more like an inconvenience that refused to expire. She corrected Amelia's dresses, her posture, her guest lists, her public smiles, her refusal to use Moretti money to impress women who already knew the price of everything in the room. At a hospital fundraiser, Victoria leaned close while photographers moved near the auction stage. "You smile too openly," Victoria murmured. "It invites familiarity." Amelia kept her eyes forward. "I thought that was the point of smiling. The point of smiling is control." Amelia turned her head. "That explains yours." Victoria did not forgive that. Dante heard about it before the night was over. In the car home, he rubbed his forehead and stared through the dark windshield. "You don't have to provoke her," he said. Amelia turned from the window. "She insulted me. She tests everyone. I'm not everyone. I'm your wife." "I know." He said it like knowing was enough. It was not. When Amelia became pregnant, she hoped something would shift. Not all at once. She was not naive enough for that. But slowly, maybe. The baby made the future feel less like an idea and more like a small living promise turning beneath her ribs. Dante cried when she showed him the test. He tried to hide it, but Amelia saw. He knelt before her in the bathroom, pressed his forehead to her stomach, though there was nothing to feel yet, and whispered, "I'll keep you both safe." For one whole week, he tried to become the man she had once believed he could be. He came home early. He sat beside her during breakfast. He attended one appointment and stared at the ultrasound screen as if the tiny flicker there had rewritten the laws of his world. He bought a crib in a soft cream color because Amelia said white furniture looked like a showroom and dark wood looked like a judge's office. He tried to assemble it himself in the nursery and cursed at the instructions until Amelia took the screwdriver from his hand, laughing despite herself. Then a shipment vanished from the harbor. A councilman changed sides. A federal subpoena landed on Victoria's desk. The Moretti world tightened around Dante again, and he let it. The crib remained half-built, one side rail leaning against the wall. A yellow blanket Amelia had bought lay folded across the mattress. Sometimes she stood in the doorway with one hand on her growing belly and imagined another life. A small house near the water. Dante coming home before dinner because no one feared him enough to need him after dark. A kitchen table with scratches not marble. A front door that did not require a code. Then she would hear Dante's voice behind the locked study door, cold and low, and the dream would fold itself away. The Whitlock Alliance entered their lives in December. Victoria introduced it over dinner at the Brookline estate as if she were discussing the weather. "Governor Whitlock is preparing for a difficult re-election year," Victoria said, cutting into her fish with perfect precision. "He needs friends with money. We need friends with reach." Dante looked up. "We already have contracts in place." "Contracts do not smile for cameras," Victoria replied. "Serena does." Amelia did not move. She had heard Serena Whitlock's name before. Everyone in Boston had. The governor's daughter was beautiful, polished, educated at the right schools, photographed at the right galas, and trained to stand beside powerful men without appearing to need them. Victoria continued. "Serena understands our world. She knows when to speak, when to be silent, and how to stand beside power without mistaking herself for its source." Amelia felt the baby move beneath her ribs. She looked at Victoria. "That sounds exhausting." Victoria's eyes cooled. "It sounds necessary." Dante reached for his glass. Amelia watched him, waiting for something sharp enough to end the conversation. He said, "Mother, nothing more." On the drive home, Boston blurred beyond the windows. Wet streets, red traffic lights, couples walking under umbrellas. Normal people moving through normal lives as if marriage did not have to feel like a room where everyone else held the keys. Amelia rested one hand on her belly. "She wants Serena near you," she said. Dante kept his eyes on the road. "She wants the governor near the business." "That is not what I said." "I know what you said." "Then answer me." His hands tightened on the wheel. "There is nothing between me and Serena Whitlock. Is that supposed to comfort me? It's the truth. No, Dante. The truth would be telling your mother to stop treating our marriage like a chair at a negotiation table. His jaw flexed. You think I don't know what she's doing? Amelia looked at him in the passing glow of streetlights. I think knowing has never stopped you from obeying her. That one struck deep. She saw it in the way his face closed. He said nothing for the rest of the ride. In the weeks that followed, Dante became harder to reach. Meetings ran late. Calls came through dinner. Victoria visited the penthouse when Amelia was not home and left traces of herself everywhere. A vase moved. A nursery sample changed. A note in that elegant slanted handwriting appeared on Dante's desk. Serena's name entered conversations like perfume that would not leave a room. A charity reception, a private donor dinner, a harbor security meeting, a governor's event, a strategy breakfast. One evening, Amelia sat in the nursery folding tiny cotton onesies. Dante stood in the doorway with his tie loose and exhaustion beneath his eyes. Have you seen her alone? She asked. No. Amelia looked up. Do not lie to me. His expression hardened, not with guilt, but with offense. I said no. Amelia nodded and returned to folding. That was another surrender, smaller than the first, more dangerous than both, because she had begun measuring truth not by what Dante said, but by how much of herself she had to silence in order to believe him. That night, after Dante went back to his study and the lock clicked softly into place, Amelia sat beside the half-built crib and listened to the city breathe against the windows. Her daughter moved under her palm. Amelia whispered, I'm trying. In the hallway beyond the nursery, Dante's phone rang again. A moment later, his voice dropped into that cold, careful tone she had come to know too well. Then she heard a name. Serena. Amelia closed her eyes. The room was warm, but something inside her went still. Amelia kept her eyes closed long after Dante's voice faded behind the study door. Serena. The name had become a draft under every door in the penthouse. It slipped into dinners, into phone calls, into the quiet space between husband and wife. Amelia hated how small the name made her feel. Not because Serena was beautiful. Boston had beautiful women everywhere. Not because Serena had money. Amelia had married into a family that measured wealth in buildings, favors, and silence. It was because Serena belonged to Dante's world in a way Amelia never had. Serena Whitlock knew how to smile beneath chandeliers. She knew which senators needed flattery, which judges needed privacy, which photographers needed a better angle. She could stand beside a man like Dante and look as if she had been carved for the position. Amelia had paint on her hands, swollen ankles, and a daughter turning inside her body like a small question she could not answer. That night she slept on the edge of the bed while Dante came in after 2 a.m. He moved carefully in the dark, but she was awake. She heard the soft slide of his watch on the dresser, the whisper of his shirt hitting the chair, the silence he carried when he thought she was too tired to notice. He got into bed behind her. For a moment he did not touch her. Then his hand came to rest gently over her belly. Their daughter kicked once. Dante went still. Amelia stared at the dark window across the room, watching the faint reflection of his hand on her body. I'm here, he whispered. Amelia almost answered, but the words rose in her throat and broke apart before they reached him. No, she thought. You visit. The next morning, rain streaked down the penthouse windows, blurring Boston into gray glass and silver roofs. Amelia sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing lotion over the tight skin of her stomach when Dante stepped out of the closet, fastening his cufflinks. He looked tired but handsome in that cruel way powerful men often did, as if exhaustion had only sharpened the lines of his face. Dinner tonight, he said. Amelia looked up. With who? He met her eyes through the mirror. With me. She waited. Dante turned from the mirror. Just us. Something inside her loosened before she could stop it. Hope had become humiliating. It came back too quickly, like a stray dog that had been kicked but still remembered the sound of a kind voice, where she asked. The Argent Room. Her eyebrows lifted. That place with the impossible reservation list, I know a guy. You are the guy for some things. A faint smile touched his mouth. For 1 second, he looked like the man from her classroom. The man who had sat too stiffly in a child-sized chair and tried to draw a whale with black crayon. The man who once walked through rain with his coat open because he had given Amelia the umbrella. She stood and crossed the room. Dante placed his palm over her stomach. Their daughter moved beneath his hand. His face changed immediately. The hardness left him so fast it almost hurt to witness. Strong girl, he murmured. Amelia covered his hand with hers. She misses you. His eyes closed. I know. Do you? He opened them. The question stayed between them, soft but sharp. Then his phone buzzed on the dresser. Neither of them moved. It buzzed again. Dante glanced at the screen. Mother. Amelia stepped back first. Answer it. He did not. But the room had already changed. The warmth had gone out of the morning, leaving only the rain tapping against the glass and the unfinished crib waiting down the hall. By late afternoon, Victoria Moretti made her move. She called Dante to the Brookline estate with the calm urgency she used when she wanted obedience to feel like responsibility. There was trouble with the governor's people. A dock commissioner wanted reassurance. A judge had concerns. Serena Whitlock would be present, Victoria said, because optics mattered. Dante refused at first. Victoria let him speak, let him pace, let him claim he had plans with his wife. Then she said, You can play husband after you protect the family. Dante stood in his study with one hand on the back of his chair and said nothing. Victoria knew his silences the way other mothers knew lullabies. When Dante arrived at the Argent Room that night, the restaurant glowed like a secret meant for rich sinners. Amber lamps, dark velvet, crystal glasses catching the candlelight. The kind of place where powerful people came to speak softly about ugly things. Serena was already in the corner booth. She wore ivory silk pearl earrings and a smile so composed it looked rehearsed in expensive mirrors. Your mother said you might be difficult, she said. Dante sat across from her. My mother says many things. Most of them true, most of them useful. Not always the same. Serena tilted her head. She also said your wife might join us later. Dante's eyes sharpened. What? Perhaps I misunderstood. He reached for his phone. Before he could call Amelia Grant, Bellamy slid into the booth with a leather folder and a smile full of polished teeth. Then came a lobbyist from the governor's office, then a harbor official, then Judge Klein, a man Dante disliked but needed quiet for another 6 months. The meeting became a trap made of obligations. Papers appeared. Drinks were poured. Men spoke in code about campaign support, cargo inspections, zoning pressure, security contracts. Serena sat close enough for photographs and quiet enough to prove she understood the rules. Dante kept checking the time. At 8:27, the last of the men stood to leave. Dante rose with them. Serena touched his hand. Wait, she said softly. He looked down at her fingers. Across the restaurant, the host was leading Amelia through the dining room. Serena saw her first and smiled. Dante followed Serena's gaze 1 second too late. Amelia stood between two tables, one hand resting over the curve of her belly. She wore a dark green dress and the small gold earrings Dante had given her on their first anniversary. Rain had left tiny drops in her hair. Her face was pale but steady. Her eyes moved from Serena's hand to Dante's face. For one terrible breath, the whole restaurant seemed to disappear. Dante stepped out of the booth. Amelia. She did not answer. Serena slowly drew back her hand, graceful as a woman lowering a knife after the wound was already made. Amelia looked at Dante, and he saw the truth land in her. Not one betrayal. Every silence that had led her there. He moved toward her. "Please," he said. Amelia's lips parted, but no sound came. Then she turned and walked away. Dante went after her, but Judge Klein stepped into his path with a murmured question, and Serena said his name just softly enough to delay him. That was all it took. Amelia reached the door. The Boston rain swallowed her whole. Outside, the cold did not make her cry. It should have. It slid beneath the collar of her coat and stole the breath from her lungs. The sidewalk shone black beneath the streetlights. Cars passed in bright streaks. A couple under an umbrella laughed as they ran toward a waiting cab. That was what hurt. Not only Serena's hand, not only Dante's silence, not even the candlelit booth. It was the memory of that morning, Dante's palm warm over her stomach, his voice soft as he called their daughter strong. It was the way Amelia had let herself believe for one fragile hour that he was coming back to her. The driver straightened when he saw her. Mrs. Moretti. Amelia opened the back door herself. The penthouse. Should I wait for Mr. Moretti? She looked through the restaurant window. Dante was moving fast now, pushing past tables, his face stripped of every mask. No. The word was quiet, but something inside her closed around it. The car pulled away before Dante reached the doors. Amelia sat in the back seat with one hand over her belly and the other pressed against her mouth. She was afraid if she moved it, the sound inside her would escape. Not a sob. Something older, something that had been holding itself together too long. The baby kicked. Amelia closed her eyes. "I know," she whispered. "I know, sweetheart." The penthouse opened to silence. No music. No warmth. Only marble glass and Dante's cologne lingering in rooms too expensive to feel lived in. Amelia stood in the entryway and looked around as if she were visiting a museum built around her own mistakes. The sculptures near the windows had been Victoria's choice. The black dining table had been Victoria's choice. The framed photograph above the console had been Victoria's choice. Even the nursery curtains had arrived after Victoria said pale yellow looked too common. Amelia wondered how much of her marriage had been furnished by another woman's hands. She went to the bedroom. The closet light came on automatically. Dante's suits lined one side, dark and perfect. Her dresses hung on the other, arranged by color because Victoria once said disorder was a confession of weakness. Amelia took down a small suitcase. At first her movements were careful. Sweater, jeans, prenatal vitamins, medical papers, the sonogram from the nightstand. Her mother's silver locket, cash from the hollow space behind the bathroom drawer. Then she stopped in front of the mirror. A pregnant woman stared back in a dark green dress, winter pale skin, and lipstick still perfect. Her hair had loosened. Her eyes looked unfamiliar. She touched her reflection fingers resting near her own mouth. "You are not going to beg," she said. Her voice sounded strange in the room. "You are not going to explain pain to people who profit from it." The front door opened. "Amelia." Dante's voice moved through the penthouse with the force of command. That voice had opened locked doors in Boston. It had ended arguments before they began. It had brought armed men to attention. Amelia kept folding clothes. His footsteps came fast down the hall. He appeared in the bedroom doorway, rain still shining on the shoulders of his black coat. His hair was wet. His eyes found the suitcase first, then her face. "What are you doing?" "Leaving." The word landed between them like glass breaking. Dante stepped into the room. "Because of what you saw," Amelia looked at him. "Because of what I finally stopped pretending not to see." His jaw tightened. It was business. She laughed once. It sounded nothing like laughter. "That word has slept in our bed longer than I have. Serena means nothing. Then why was I the one who looked replaceable? His face changed. Guilt, anger, pride, fear. They moved too quickly for her to separate. "You do not understand what this is," he said. "There it is. What that sentence? Your favorite locked door. You hide behind it every time you do not want to tell me the truth." Dante removed his coat slowly, as if controlling his body might control the room. "My mother set the meeting. I did not ask for Serena, but you stayed. There were people there I could not walk away from." Amelia zipped the suitcase. "You walked away from me every day. You just did it sitting still." His eyes darkened. "I am trying to talk to you." "No, you are trying to manage me." He took a step closer. "Stop." She lifted the suitcase from the bed. It was heavier than she expected. She did not let him see it. Dante moved into her path. "Move." "No." The room went still. For the first time since she had known him, Amelia saw the full shape of the man other people feared. Not because he raised his hand. He did not. Not because he shouted. He rarely needed to. It was in the way his body filled the doorway, the way the air waited for him to decide what reality could be. "You are 7 months pregnant," he said. "You are hurt. You are angry. I understand that. But you are not walking out in the middle of the night." Amelia looked at him and felt fear rise, not because she believed he would hurt her with his hands, because some weaker part of her still wanted him to stop her in a way that meant love, because part of her wanted to confuse being claimed with being protected. Then the baby moved. Her hand went to her stomach. Dante's eyes followed the motion, and something in him softened. She used that moment to step around him. He caught her wrist. "Not hard. Enough." Amelia looked down at his hand. "Let go, Amelia. Let go of me, Dante." He did. She walked past him. At his desk, she stopped. The city glittered beyond the windows, obedient and cold. She placed her wedding band beside the sonogram photo, then set the folded letter beneath both. Dante stood in the hallway behind her, silent now. Amelia did not turn around. If you wanted a wife who could be managed, you should have married a woman who did not remember how to survive without you. Then she was gone. The train to Portland left after midnight. Amelia bought the ticket with cash and kept her head down beneath the hood of her coat. Her phone buzzed inside her purse until she turned it off. Every vibration felt like Dante's hand around her wrist. The train was half empty. A college boy slept with headphones on. An old woman knitted something pale blue under the dim light. A mother across the aisle fed crackers to a toddler one at a time, whispering little promises between each bite. Amelia watched them and felt the first tear slide down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. Then another came. By the time the train pulled out of Boston, she was crying silently into her sleeve, one hand curved around the child inside her, the other clutching the sonogram like proof that some part of her future still belonged to her. Grace Hartwell lived above a small clinic in Portland in an apartment that always smelled faintly of antiseptic coffee and cinnamon candles she forgot to blow out. When she opened the door, she wore sweatpants, wool socks, and an old university sweatshirt with a hole near the collar. Her face changed before Amelia said a word. "What did he do?" Amelia stood in the hallway with her suitcase beside her and rain drying in her hair. "Enough!" Grace pulled her inside. There were people who asked questions because they wanted answers, and there were people who made room because they understood the answer had to arrive on its own. Grace made tea. She found blankets. She took Amelia's coat and hung it over a chair. She did all of it without looking too long at Amelia's bare ring finger. Only when Amelia sat on the couch and pressed both hands to her belly did Grace sit beside her. "Did he hurt you?" Amelia shook her head. "Not with his hands." Grace's mouth tightened. That counts. For a while, Amelia could not speak. The radiator clicked. Rain hit the window. Somewhere below, an ambulance passed with its siren low and tired. Finally, Amelia whispered, "I thought I was being strong." Grace waited, but I was just being quiet. Her sister's face softened. "Quiet kept you alive in that house," Grace said. "It does not have to be your language forever." That was when Amelia broke. Not beautifully, not softly. She folded forward over her belly and sobbed until Grace wrapped both arms around her and held on. For 2 days, Dante did not come. That should have comforted Amelia. It did not. She told herself he was giving her space. Then she told herself he was too proud to chase. Then she told herself he was planning something, because Dante Moretti had never lost anything without first deciding whether it could be bought back, threatened back, or buried. On the 3rd morning, orchids arrived. White orchids in a glass vase. Grace stared at them in the clinic doorway while the delivery boy shifted nervously. "Absolutely not," Grace said. "I just deliver them, ma'am." Amelia took the card. There were no words, only Dante's signature. She handed the flowers back. "Take them to a hospital." The boy blinked. "What?" "Someone there needs them more than I do." By noon, another arrangement arrived. Then a velvet box with a diamond bracelet Amelia had never wanted. Then an envelope with a handwritten note. "Come home. We can fix this." Grace read it over her shoulder and gave a bitter laugh. "He thinks guilt comes with a receipt." Amelia folded the note once. "No. He thinks love is something he can send when he is too late to show up." That evening, Dante came himself. Amelia heard the black car before she saw it. There was a certain sound expensive engines made against wet pavement. Smooth, predatory, out of place on Grace's narrow street. Grace looked through the curtain. "He's here." Amelia stood in the small kitchen slicing an apple she no longer wanted. Her hand froze around the knife. "You do not have to see him," Grace said. "I know," but her voice did not sound like she knew anything. The knock came. 3 firm taps. Grace walked to the door and opened it only as far as the chain allowed. Dante stood in the hall in a dark overcoat, his face drawn from sleeplessness. He looked past Grace, searching the apartment. "She does not want to see you," Grace said. "I need to speak to my wife." "Your wife needed to speak to you for months. You were busy." His eyes cut to her. "Grace, no. You do not get to use my name like we are family while my sister is hiding in my kitchen trying not to shake." Amelia closed her eyes. Dante's voice dropped. "She is carrying my child." Grace did not move. "Then maybe you should have remembered she was carrying your heart, too." Silence filled the hallway. For a moment, Amelia thought Dante might force the door. Not with violence, maybe, but with his kind of pressure. A call to the landlord, a threat wrapped in manners, a reminder that doors only mattered to people without power. Instead, he stepped back. "Amelia," he said louder now, but not commanding. "I know you can hear me." She gripped the counter. "I know my mother was involved." Her eyes opened. Grace glanced back at her. Dante continued, his voice rougher. "I know she arranged the dinner. I know Serena played along, but I did not ask for that. I did not want you hurt." Amelia almost laughed. Intentions. Men like Dante loved intentions. They held them up like clean shirts over dirty hands. Grace said, "Leave. This is not between you and me." "No," Grace said. "It is between my sister and every person who made her feel small enough to vanish." The hallway stayed quiet for one more breath. Then Dante said, "Tell her I will not stop trying." Grace shut the door. Amelia put the knife down before her hand betrayed her. "He sounded awful," Grace said softly. Amelia stared at the apple slices on the cutting board. Good. But the word did not feel good. It felt like blood in her mouth. The next morning, Amelia's phone rang from an unknown number. She was alone in the apartment while Grace worked downstairs. Rain tapped against the window. Amelia almost ignored it. Then, some instinct sharpened by the Moretti house moved through her. She answered. Amelia Moretti. A woman's voice came through, elegant and calm. How quickly you remember the name when you are hiding from it. Amelia's hand tightened around the phone. Victoria. We should talk. I have nothing to say to you. Then listen. The line went quiet for half a second. I know what you saw at that restaurant, Victoria said. More importantly, I know why you saw it. Amelia went still. Victoria named an old hotel tea room near the waterfront. Noon. Alone. Then the line went dead. Amelia stood in Grace's kitchen with the phone still pressed to her ear, the rain moving down the window like thin gray fingers. Inside her, the baby shifted. Amelia placed her palm over her stomach. I know, she whispered. This time her voice did not tremble. The tea room Victoria chose sat inside an old hotel near the Portland waterfront, the kind of place that treated quiet as a luxury and polished silver as a language. Rain tapped against the tall windows. Waiters moved between tables with white towels over their wrists. Women in pearls lifted porcelain cups and spoke in voices soft enough to hide cruelty if cruelty came dressed properly. Amelia arrived 5 minutes early because fear had made her restless. Grace had begged her not to go. Evelyn Shaw, the attorney, Grace found through a nurse at the clinic, had told her not to go alone. But Amelia had needed to see Victoria Moretti's face when she said the truth out loud. She needed to know whether the woman who had arranged that dinner would have the nerve to call it protection while looking at the child she had tried to wound before birth. Victoria was already seated near the window. She wore a cream coat, black gloves, and a string of pearls that looked less like jewelry and more like a declaration. Her silver hair was pinned perfectly. A cup of tea rested untouched before her. She did not stand when Amelia approached. You look tired, Victoria said. I'm pregnant and living out of a suitcase. A small smile touched Victoria's mouth. There she is. I wondered how much spine remained. Amelia sat across from her. She kept one hand beneath the table palm resting over her stomach. Say what you called to say. Victoria lifted her cup, then set it down without drinking. Serena did exactly what I asked her to do. The room seemed to narrow. Amelia heard the clink of a spoon against porcelain at the next table. A man laughing softly near the fireplace, her own heartbeat moving too fast in her ears. You set it up, Amelia said. Yes. You wanted me to see them? Of course. The honesty should have felt like victory. It did not. It felt like stepping onto ice and hearing the first crack. Does Dante know? Victoria's eyes remained steady. Dante knows what I need him to know. Amelia leaned back, suddenly colder than she had been outside. For the first time, she understood the true shape of the woman sitting across from her. Victoria did not simply control the Moretti family. She believed she was the family. She believed every son, wife, child, ally, servant, and enemy existed somewhere inside the borders of her will. My son is sentimental, Victoria said. He always has been. Your mistake was thinking sentiment could protect you. My mistake, Amelia said quietly, was thinking your son was free. Victoria's eyes sharpened. Dante was born into responsibility. You were born into ordinary struggle and mistook it for moral superiority. I never wanted your money. No. Victoria's voice softened, which somehow made it worse. You wanted something far more dangerous. His attention, his loyalty, his future away from the family. I wanted a husband. You married a Moretti. That was never the role. Victoria opened the slim folder beside her and slid several pages across the table. Amelia did not touch them. What is that, a clean exit? Divorce, a generous settlement, medical care through the birth, a private residence where you will be safe. After delivery, we arrange custody in a way that preserves the child's proper place. Amelia stared at her. Proper place. The Moretti name is not decoration, Amelia. It is protection. It is survival. It is ownership. Victoria's smile thinned. You say that like ownership has never kept anyone alive. My daughter belongs to herself. That is a pretty sentence. Judges prefer facts. Amelia's hands were shaking, so she curled them into fists beneath the table. Victoria continued calm as winter. You are a former teacher with limited savings, a sick father, and a sister who is one unexpected bill away from collapse. You left your marital home while 7 months pregnant. You are avoiding communication with your husband. You are emotional isolated and making decisions that could be framed as unstable. Framed. Amelia repeated. Victoria's gaze lowered briefly to Amelia's stomach. Do not confuse being loved with being equipped. You cannot give that child what we can. I can give her a mother who does not sell her. For the first time, Victoria's mask shifted, only slightly. A flash of anger passed through her eyes before the smoothness returned. You are outmatched. Amelia stood. The chair legs scraped against the floor. Several people glanced over. Victoria did not move. You want a war? Victoria asked. Amelia looked down at her. No, I want peace. You are the one who thinks peace means surrender. She turned and walked away before Victoria could see the tears beginning. Outside, the rain had turned colder. Amelia stood beneath the hotel awning and tried to breathe through the pressure tightening beneath her ribs. Her daughter shifted as if the baby had felt the whole conversation and objected to every word. Amelia pressed both hands over her belly. I know, she whispered. I know. By 4 that afternoon, she was sitting in Evelyn Shaw's office above a narrow street that smelled of wet pavement, old brick, and burnt coffee from the cafe below. The office was small but orderly. No marble, no velvet, no portraits of dead men looking down from the walls. Evelyn Shaw sat across from her in a navy suit, reading glasses low on her nose, silver streaking through her dark hair. She had the stillness of someone who had seen rich families turn children into evidence and had not lost her appetite for fighting them. Grace sat beside Amelia, one hand gripping her sister's sleeve. Amelia told Evelyn everything. The restaurant, the letter, Dante blocking the doorway, Victoria's confession, the settlement offer, the custody threat. The way Victoria spoke about the baby as if the child were a future asset with a heartbeat. Evelyn listened without interrupting. When Amelia finished, the attorney folded her hands. Do you have records? Amelia opened her bag. She had more than she thought. Screenshots of Victoria's messages, photographs of notes left in the penthouse, medical records, copies of emails Dante's assistant had accidentally sent to her, pictures of ledgers she had seen once on Dante's desk and photographed without admitting to herself why, receipts, dates, names, the written memory of 2 years spent learning that fear leaves paper trails. Evelyn moved through the documents slowly. Then she looked up. You were preparing, Amelia swallowed. I was surviving. Evelyn's expression changed. Not soft, respectful. Good. Survival keeps receipts. Grace let out a breath that sounded almost like a sob. Evelyn gathered the papers into a clean stack. Here is what you need to understand. Victoria Moretti will not treat this like a family problem. She will treat you like a threat to be neutralized. Amelia's throat tightened, and Dante Evelyn removed her glasses. That depends on whether he is your husband or his mother's son. The next morning, the answer arrived in the form of a letter. Grant Bellamy, Victoria's attorney, wrote with language so polished it almost looked reasonable. He claimed Amelia had abandoned the marital home while pregnant. He claimed she had denied Dante reasonable access to his unborn child. He suggested she was under severe emotional stress and acting from paranoia connected to the marriage. He noted carefully and cruelly that sudden disappearance during pregnancy could raise concerns about judgment. Amelia read the letter at Grace's kitchen table while rain slid down the window. Grace stood behind her, going pale with anger. "They make it sound like you ran off in a fit. That is the point. They do not mention Serena. They do not mention Victoria." "No," Amelia said. "They mention me crying, me leaving, me not answering calls, me being pregnant." Grace turned away and pressed both hands to the counter. "I want to break something." Amelia stared at the words until they blurred. She had heard Dante's men talk about leverage. She had thought she understood it. Money secrets, threats, favors, names spoken at the right time in the right room. Now she understood the cruelest leverage was the power to rename another person's pain. Her escape had become abandonment. Her fear had become instability. Her silence had become proof. Evelyn told her not to call Dante, not to answer Victoria, not to respond to anyone except through counsel. "And if Dante shows up," Amelia asked, "do not be alone with him." The advice stayed with her for the rest of the day. Still, when the black car pulled up beside the curb outside Evelyn's office that afternoon, Amelia knew it was him before the door opened. Dante stepped into the rain without an umbrella. He looked worse than he had at Grace's door. His jaw was unshaven. There were shadows beneath his eyes. He wore only a dark suit jacket against the cold, as if he had left somewhere in a hurry and forgotten weather was something other people had to obey. Amelia. She turned toward the building. "Do not." He crossed the sidewalk, but stopped before he came too close. "I did not hire Bellamy, but your mother did. That is not the same thing." She turned back. Rain gathered in her hair and cooled against her cheeks. "It becomes the same when you let her speak for you." His mouth tightened. "I told her to stand down. Did she?" He said nothing. Amelia gave a small, tired smile. "That is what I thought." A woman passed them on the sidewalk, slowing for half a second before deciding not to see what she was seeing. People had instincts about danger. They knew when a conversation looked private, but sounded like weather before a storm. Dante lowered his voice. "I confronted her about the restaurant. She admitted it." "Congratulations," Amelia said. "You found out your mother is cruel after she hurt me badly enough to leave. That is not courage, Dante. That is cleanup." He flinched. She hated that part of her noticed. "I should have seen it," he said. "Yes, I should have stopped it. Yes, I should have protected you." Her throat tightened. "Yes." The word came out smaller than she wanted. Dante took one step closer, then stopped himself. That restraint hurt too. Everything hurt. His failure, his effort, the fact that she could still read him so easily. "I need 5 minutes," he said. "My lawyer told me not to be alone with you. Call her. Put her on speaker." "I don't care. You always care. Not about that." The wind pushed rain between them. Amelia's back ached. The baby shifted low and pressure tightened across her belly. Dante saw it. His face changed. "You're cold." "I'm fine." "You're not fine." "No, Dante, I'm not. But cold is not the reason." He looked toward the car, then back at her. 5 minutes inside. Heat on. Doors unlocked. "Evelyn on speaker if you want. You leave whenever you want." Amelia should have said no. She knew that, but exhaustion narrowed the world. The office door was only a few steps away, yet the car looked warm, and Dante stood with his hands open, not reaching for her. She hated him for making gentleness look new. 5 minutes, she said. Inside the car, heat wrapped around her so quickly her eyes stung. Dante sat behind the wheel with both hands visible. He did not lock the doors. Amelia called Evelyn and placed the phone face up between them. "Ms. Shaw," Dante said. "Mr. Moretti." Evelyn replied, voice flat. "I am listening." For several breaths only, the rain spoke against the roof. Then Dante said, "I moved out of the penthouse." Amelia looked at him. "What, I am staying at a hotel?" "Why?" He kept his eyes forward. "Because every room sounded like you leaving." Amelia looked away first. Do not believe him, she told herself. But memory was disobedient. It gave her Dante sitting in her classroom with a paper whale, Dante laughing in the rain, Dante cursing at crib instructions, Dante half asleep at 3 a.m. reaching for her as if, even unconscious, he knew where home was. "You do not get to say things like that unless you know what they cost," she said. "I know. No, you don't. You think pain is something you can endure because endurance is familiar to you. But my pain was ordinary. It was breakfast alone. It was doctor appointments you missed. It was your mother correcting my life while you called it strategy. It was sleeping beside you and feeling like the other woman in your marriage to power." Dante's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I gave the family the best of me," he said, voice rough, "and gave you what was left." That silenced her. The old Dante would have defended himself. He would have explained pressure enemies, obligations, history, blood, the family name. This Dante sounded like the truth had finally cut him somewhere deep enough to bleed. Evelyn's voice came from the phone. "That is a beginning, Mr. Moretti. It is not a defense." "I know," he said. Amelia looked at him then. "What do you want from me?" "Tell me what to do." Her chest tightened with anger so sudden it steadied her. "I want you to stop asking me to teach you how to become a husband after I had to disappear to get your attention." He swallowed. "Amelia, when your mother attacks me, stop telling me it is not you. Make it not you." She opened the door and stepped back into the rain. 3 days later, Grant Bellamy proposed a meeting. Evelyn said no. Grant asked again with language polished enough to sound reasonable and sharp enough to cut if refused. Neutral location. Private conference room. No court filing that week if Amelia agreed to hear terms. Grace crossed her arms in Evelyn's office. "It is a trap." "Yes," Evelyn said. "Then we don't go." Amelia sat on the couch with both hands over her stomach. She had not slept well since the car ride with Dante. His words kept returning at inconvenient times. "I gave you what was left." She wished he had not said something true. Lies were easier to hate. "I want to see Victoria," Amelia said. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "No, I need to know what she really wants. She wants control." "No," Amelia said. "Control is what she uses. I want to know what she wants badly enough to risk Dante hating her." Grace went still. "She wants your baby." The room changed around that sentence. Amelia looked down at the curve of her belly. "Then I need to look her in the eye when she says it." The meeting took place in a glass conference room overlooking the harbor. The building was expensive in a way that did not announce itself. Quiet carpet, soft lights, receptionists who smiled without curiosity, walls that had heard rich people threaten each other in pleasant voices. Victoria was already seated when Amelia entered with Evelyn. Grant Bellamy sat beside her, silver-haired and handsome, with the calm expression of a man who had ruined lives before lunch and still made dinner reservations. Dante was not there. Amelia noticed before she could stop herself. Victoria noticed her noticing. "My son's presence is unnecessary," she said. Amelia sat across from her. "Of course. You always preferred speaking for him." Grant smiled. "Let us keep this productive." Evelyn placed her folder on the table. Then stop threatening my client. No one is threatening anyone, Grant said. We are here to discuss stability for the child. My child, Amelia said. Victoria's gaze moved to Amelia's stomach with a tenderness that made her skin crawl. Moretti blood. Evelyn shifted beside Amelia, a silent warning. Victoria opened the folder in front of her. Here is what I am prepared to offer. You will remain in a residence we provide through the birth. Full medical care, security, staff, financial support. After delivery, we establish a custody arrangement that allows you generous time with the child while preserving her rightful place within the Moretti family. Amelia stared at her. You want me kept. I want my granddaughter safe. From what instability, poverty, emotional decisions made by a woman confusing pride with motherhood. Evelyn's voice cut in. Careful, Mrs. Moretti. Victoria did not look at her. You cannot give that child what we can. I can love her. Love is not a school. Love is not protection. Love is not a judge, a doctor, a secure home, a future. No, Amelia said. Love is why I know she is not property. For a moment, Victoria's expression sharpened. Then she said, Serena Whitlock is pregnant. The words did not explode. They hollowed the room out. Amelia stared at her. Grant lowered his eyes to the documents in front of him as if respecting grief and not helping stage it. Victoria's voice softened. 3 months. She came to me frightened and alone. Dante does not know yet. Amelia could not breathe. Evelyn spoke beside her, calm and firm. Do not respond. Victoria slid a photograph across the table. Serena leaving a private clinic sunglasses on one hand, resting low over her stomach. Amelia looked at the picture and hated herself for looking. That proves nothing, Evelyn said. I have medical documentation, Grant replied. Then produce it through proper channels. In time, Victoria said. Amelia lifted her eyes. You made her do this too. Victoria smiled faintly. Serena understands sacrifice. No, Amelia said. Serena understands payment. For the first time, Grant looked uncomfortable. Victoria's voice cooled. You are outmatched. Take the residence. Take the money. Keep your dignity while I am still willing to leave you some. Amelia stood slowly. I am not making a deal with the woman who tried to buy my child before she took her first breath. Victoria looked at Evelyn. Control your client. Evelyn closed her folder. My client is leaving. Amelia made it to the elevator before her body betrayed her. She bent forward with one hand against the wall, dragging air into lungs that felt too small. Evelyn caught her by the elbow. She is lying, the attorney said. Amelia shook her head. She was too pleased. That does not make it true. It makes it useful. By the time Amelia returned to Grace's apartment that evening, she had made her decision. Grace opened the door and knew immediately. No. Amelia walked past her. I need the gray suitcase. Amelia. She knows about Dad. She knows about your debt. She knows where you live. She knows everything. So we fight here. She will make here unsafe. She does not get to push you out of every place. Amelia stopped beside the bedroom door. Grace, she does not want me gone. She wants me desperate. There is a difference. Grace's face tightened with anger she had nowhere to put. Where will you go? Amelia pulled a folded paper from her coat pocket. Bar Harbor. Grace stared at her. Maine in winter while pregnant. Great plan. I know. You cannot run forever. Amelia looked at her. I only need to run long enough to think. They packed in silence after that. Not much. Clothes, vitamins, cash, medical papers, the sonogram, her mother's locket, a coat warm enough for the coast, Grace slipped a pack of crackers and 2 bottles of water into the side pocket, then cried as if she was angry at the tears. Near midnight, Amelia stood by the apartment door. Grace held her carefully, fiercely. "Call me when you get there." "I will." "No, Amy. Promise me." Amelia closed her eyes. "I promise." Downstairs, the street was quiet and shining with rain. A cab waited at the curb. Amelia got in and did not look back until Grace's building disappeared behind the turn. At the bus station, she paid cash for a ticket north. Her phone buzzed as she sat near the back with her suitcase under her feet. Dante. She let it ring until it stopped. Then came a message. "Please, talk to me." Amelia turned the phone off. Outside the window, the highway stretched ahead, black and wet and unknown. For the first time in days, no one was standing in front of her. No Dante, no Victoria, no lawyers, no conference room full of threats dressed as concern. Only the road, the rain, and the small, steady movement beneath her palm. "I do not know where we are going, baby," she whispered, "but we are not going back." Hours later, Bar Harbor appeared through gray morning light and ocean fog. The cabin sat beyond town, tucked behind bare pines with the Atlantic breathing cold beyond the trees. Amelia found the key beneath a stone bird on the porch. The lock stuck twice before opening. Inside, the air smelled of cedar dust and old smoke. No marble, no guards, no cameras, no portraits of dead Moretti men. Just one small room, a cold stove, a faded couch, and wind pressing against the windows. Amelia stepped inside and shut the door behind her. For one full breath, she felt alone in a way that almost resembled peace. Then, headlights swept across the cabin windows. She froze with her hand still on the suitcase. Outside, a car door closed. Amelia did not move. The headlights stayed across the front windows, pale and sharp against the fogged glass. Her fingers tightened around the suitcase handle until the bones in her hand ached. For one wild second, she imagined Victoria's men stepping onto the porch in black coats, imagined Dante behind them, imagined every mile she had traveled folding itself shut. The knock came once, firm. Then a woman's voice called through the door. "Amelia Hartwell." "My name is Dr. Helen Mercer. Evelyn Shaw sent me." Amelia closed her eyes, and the breath left her so quickly she had to grab the back of a chair. Outside, the woman waited. "I'm alone," Dr. Mercer said. "And I'm too old to stand in this weather, proving I'm not a threat." Despite everything, Amelia almost laughed. She opened the door with the chain still on. Dr. Helen Mercer stood on the porch in a navy raincoat, gray hair tucked beneath a wool hat, leather medical bag in one hand. She was in her late 50s, maybe older, with warm brown skin and eyes that missed nothing. She looked at the chain, then at Amelia's face, then at her stomach. "Good," the doctor said. "You still have instincts." Amelia released the chain. Dr. Mercer stepped inside and stamped rain from her boots. The cabin suddenly seemed smaller, with another person in it, but not unsafe. The doctor moved like a woman used to entering homes during storms, births, fevers, deaths, and family emergencies no one wanted neighbors to hear. She set her bag on the table. "Evelyn said you might need prenatal care. She did not say you looked like you had been chased across 3 states. "I haven't." Dr. Mercer glanced at her. Amelia looked away first. The doctor did not push. She took off her gloves, washed her hands at the small sink, and began asking questions in a practical voice. Due date, medical history, blood pressure, last meal, last real sleep, any dizziness, any swelling, any pain. Amelia answered until her throat tightened. The baby kicked during the exam. Dr. Mercer listened with a small handheld monitor, and the cabin filled with the fast, strong rhythm of a heartbeat. Amelia turned her face toward the wall. Dr. Mercer pretended not to see the tears. "Your daughter has opinions," she said. "She gets that from my sister." "Good." Every woman needs at least one person in her bloodline who knows how to make noise. That broke a small laugh from Amelia, rusty and unwilling. Dr. Mercer smiled once. There she is. By morning, Bar Harbor looked less like a hiding place and more like a town stubborn enough to survive winter by habit. The ocean sat beyond the roads, dark and restless. Fog moved through the pines. Storefronts opened slowly. Fishermen in rubber boots walked with coffee cups in hand. Nothing hurried, nothing bowed. Dr. Mercer took Amelia to the clinic after breakfast. The building was small, white, and plain with salt on the steps and a bell above the door. The receptionist looked at Amelia's stomach, then at her face, and asked no questions. That kindness nearly undid her. After the exam, Dr. Mercer wrote a list on a yellow notepad. More water, more food, less walking alone when the air could freeze the truth out of a liar. Weekly visits. No arguments. I can pay. I didn't ask if you could pay. Amelia blinked. Why would you help me? Dr. Mercer capped her pen. Because that is what people are supposed to do. The sentence entered Amelia gently, then opened something she had been holding shut for too long. Later, at a diner near the harbor, a woman named Ruthie Bell put pancakes in front of her before Amelia had finished ordering eggs. I only asked for toast, Amelia said. The baby asked for pancakes, Ruthie replied, pouring decaf tea with the authority of a judge. Amelia stared at the plate. Then she laughed. At the counter, an old fisherman named Cal Turner folded his newspaper and nodded toward her coat. You staying out at Eleanor's old cabin? Amelia went still. Ruthie shot him a look. Cal. He lifted both hands. Just asking. I fixed that porch rail last winter. If it still wobbles, blame the wood. Amelia studied him. Weathered face, kind eyes, hands built for repairing things that had no interest in being repaired. It wobbles a little, she said. I'll come by tomorrow. That is not necessary. Cal took a sip of coffee. Most useful things aren't. He came the next morning with a toolbox and a thermos of soup. He fixed the porch rail in the cold, said almost nothing, and left before Amelia could ask why he was being kind. When he handed her the thermos, he only said, Ruthie made too much. Did she know? But that is what we say when pride is listening. The days began to take shape. Clinic visits, warm meals, short walks along the harbor when the wind allowed it. Calls to Grace from the old landline because Amelia still kept her phone off more often than on. She taped the sonogram inside the closet door where only she could see it. At night, she sat by the window with a blanket over her knees and listened to the ocean breathing beyond the trees. The silence in Bar Harbor was different from the silence in Boston. In the penthouse, silence had been a locked door. Here, silence was snow gathering on pine branches. It was a diner closing after dark. It was a doctor washing her hands before telling the truth. It was a town-making room without asking for the whole story first. But peace did not erase fear. A black SUV on the main road made Amelia stop in the middle of the sidewalk. An unknown number on the clinic phone sent her pulse racing. Once a man in a dark coat held the door for her at the pharmacy, and she nearly dropped the bottle of vitamins in her hand. Dr. Mercer noticed. Ruthie noticed. Cal noticed. Nobody said poor thing. That helped. In Boston, Dante Moretti stopped sending flowers. That was the first thing Amelia noticed when she finally turned her phone on for 10 minutes one night. No orchids, no diamond apology, no messages that told her to come home. Only one text from Dante. I will not ask where you are. I am making it not me. Amelia read it 3 times. Then she turned the phone off again. Dante was in his father's old study when he sent that message. The Moretti estate around him felt colder than he remembered. His grandfather's portrait hung above the fireplace. His father's old whiskey cabinet stood locked beside the bookshelves. Victoria's presence lived in every object, every chair, every polished surface. Even in rooms she was not in, she remained. Serena Whitlock was easy to follow because she had been trained to believe visibility was power. Dante did not send men to threaten her. He sent an accountant, a former private investigator, and a woman from his legal team who knew how to trace money through charities that looked clean from a distance. Within 48 hours, he had the first thread, a payment from a civic arts foundation tied to one of Victoria's old friends. Then another. Then a shell consulting fee routed through a company registered in Delaware. Then a clinic photograph arranged by a publicist who had once worked for Governor Whitlock. The medical document Grant Bellamy had referenced did not exist in any hospital system. Serena was not pregnant. Dante found her at a private gallery opening on Newbury Street. The walls were white. The wine was expensive. The paintings looked like mistakes rich people had agreed to admire. Serena stood beneath a large canvas of red and black streaks wearing emerald silk and a smile that died the moment she saw him. "Dante," she said, "this is not the place." "No," he said, "it is exactly the place. Everyone here understands performance." She looked around. 2 photographers stood near the entrance. A state senator laughed beside the bar. No one wanted to see a scene, but everyone wanted to be close enough to describe one later. Dante stepped nearer. "How much did my mother pay you?" Serena's face hardened. "You think everything is money. In my experience, people who say that have already been paid." She turned toward the painting. "Your mother offered protection. From what my father, his campaign debts, the men who own him, the same world that owns you." Dante said nothing. Serena's voice lowered. "She told me I would only have to sit close, touch your hand, let your wife see what she already feared. And the pregnancy," Serena swallowed. "That came later. You lied about a child." She looked at him then, and for the first time her polish cracked. "In your world, children are just contracts with heartbeats." The words hit harder than he wanted them to, because he had watched his mother speak about his daughter that way, because he had allowed rooms to exist where Amelia's motherhood could be weighed against money influence and bloodline, because he had spent years believing he could keep poison in one part of his life and still come home clean. Serena looked away. "I will sign a statement," she said. "But if your mother comes for me, I want protection. You will have it. From you," Dante's mouth tightened. "From the people I should have gone to before I became one of the reasons women like you were afraid." Serena stared at him, unsure whether to trust the change in his voice. Dante did not blame her. That night he went deeper into the records. His father's name surfaced by accident. Vincent Moretti had died 6 years earlier of a heart condition. That was the official version. Dante had been told the stress of leadership had finally claimed him. Victoria had worn black for 1 year and command for the rest of her life. But in a locked file cabinet behind a false panel, Dante found a folder marked with old medical invoices, a private nurse, a pharmacy account, a sealed toxicology request never delivered to the family doctor, a payment to a specialist in New Hampshire made 3 days before Vincent died, and a letter. It was written in his father's hand. Dante read it standing beside the desk where Vincent had once taught him never to look away first. "My son, if you are reading this, it means I waited too long to become brave. Your mother believes the family is a kingdom. It is not. It is a cage with better furniture. I built too many bars myself. I will not pretend innocence now. I have begun talks to dissolve the harbor operations and move the legitimate companies into trust. You were not born to spend your life feeding men who only call it loyalty because fear sounds ugly at dinner. If I fail, remember this. A name is not a soul. Do not let mine bury yours." Dante sat down slowly. For years he had believed his father died leaving him a throne. Now it looked like Vincent had died trying to dismantle one. There was one more document beneath the letter. A nurse's note. Patient presented with symptoms inconsistent with prescribed medication. Dante stared at the sentence until the room seemed to tilt. He thought of Victoria standing beside Vincent's casket, dry-eyed, composed, accepting condolences like signatures on a contract. He thought of her telling him, "Your father gave everything for this family." He thought of Amelia's voice in the car. "You think knowing has never stopped you from obeying her." By dawn, Dante was sitting across from Agent Cole Bennett in a closed room at the Federal Building. Bennett had been chasing the Moretti family for nearly a decade. He was broad-shouldered, tired-eyed, and unimpressed by expensive suits. He looked at Dante as if the chair itself might be contaminated by him. "You understand Bennett said that anything you hand me can bury you too." "Good." The agent's eyebrows lifted slightly. "That is not usually how criminals negotiate. I am not negotiating for myself." Dante placed the first folder on the table. Harbor contracts, laundering routes, bribed inspectors, political payments, Bellamy's filings, Serena's statement, the fake pregnancy, Victoria's threats, the suspicious records tied to Vincent Moretti's death. Bennett did not touch the folder at first. "What do you want my wife and daughter protected? From your mother. From my name." Bennett studied him. "You do not get to buy redemption with evidence." "I know." "Then what is this?" Dante looked at the folder. "The first honest thing I have done since my wife left." Bennett opened the file. In Bar Harbor, Amelia began teaching a small children's art class at the library on Tuesday afternoons. Maggie Lane, the librarian, had asked if she wanted something to do that did not involve staring at the ocean like it owed her answers. The first class had 6 children, 3 boxes of crayons, 2 glue spills, and 1 little girl who cried because her paper seal looked like a potato. Amelia helped her add whiskers. There she said, "Now it is a seal with confidence." The girl laughed. For 1 hour, Amelia was not Dante's missing wife, or Victoria's target, or a woman measuring every sound against danger. She was Miss Hartwell again, guiding small hands through color and paper and ordinary mess. After class, she walked back to the cabin with a paper snowflake folded in her pocket. Halfway up the road, she felt it. Being watched. She stopped. A black sedan sat near the curve by the pines. Its windows were dark. The engine was running. Amelia's breath caught. The sedan pulled away slowly. When she reached the cabin, a white orchid lay on the porch. No note, no signature, just the flower Dante had sent after she left. Only this one was not from Dante. Amelia stood in the cold with the orchid at her feet and understood the message. Victoria had found her. She went inside, locked the door, and called Sheriff Daniel Pike. He arrived 15 minutes later in a brown coat instead of a uniform, which somehow made him seem more serious. He listened without interrupting while Amelia told him enough of the truth to make the danger real. When she finished, he looked at the orchid on the table. "Do I need to know who they are?" he asked, "or just where they are standing?" Amelia's hand rested over her stomach. "They belong to my husband's mother." "Does your husband belong to her too?" That question stayed in the room. "I don't know anymore," Amelia said. Sheriff Pike nodded once. "Then we plan as if he does not." Dante found out 2 hours later. Not from Amelia. From Agent Bennett, who had traced one of Victoria's men through a rental car near the Maine coast. Dante did not call Amelia. He called Sheriff Pike. The sheriff answered with a voice like gravel in winter. "If you are calling to ask where she is, hang up. I know where she is." "Then you are already on thin ice. My mother found her. I noticed. I am driving up." "No." Dante went silent. Sheriff Pike continued. You want to be useful, Mr. Moretti. Then do not arrive like a storm and expect the woman you scared into hiding to thank you for the weather. Dante closed his eyes. I need to see her. That is not the same as helping her. The words cut because they were true. Dante drove to Bar Harbor anyway, but he did not go to the cabin. He went to the sheriff's office and waited. When Amelia agreed to see him, she chose Ruthie's diner. Public, bright, windows on 3 sides. Ruthie behind the counter with a coffee pot and the expression of a woman willing to use it as a weapon. Dante arrived without guards. Amelia noticed. He looked different in the diner light. Less like a king, more like a man who had not slept and no longer trusted the ground beneath him. He sat across from her, hands visible on the table. Serena is not pregnant, he said. Amelia looked down at her tea. I wanted that to make me feel better. It doesn't. No. She lifted her eyes. Because the lie was never the whole wound. Dante accepted that without defending himself. She signed a statement. Victoria paid her. Bellamy helped shape the custody threat. I gave the documents to Agent Bennett, the federal agent. Yes. Amelia studied him. You went to the government. I went to the only people my mother cannot invite to dinner and control by dessert. For the first time, a faint, almost smile moved through Amelia's face. It vanished quickly. Dante placed a folded copy of Vincent's letter on the table, but did not push it toward her. My father was trying to get out, he said. Before he died. Amelia's expression changed. Dante, I think my mother stopped him. The diner sounds seemed to soften around them, forks against plates, coffee pouring, wind against glass. Dante's voice lowered. I spent years believing the Empire was his legacy. It may have been the thing that killed him. Amelia looked at the letter but did not touch it. And now you want to burn it down. Yes, because it finally hurt you. Dante shook his head. No, because I used it to keep you warm while it was setting you on fire. That silenced her. Ruthie stopped pretending not to listen. Outside, the harbor fog thickened against the windows. Amelia's hand moved slowly over her belly. I don't know what to do with the man you are trying to become, she said. Dante's face tightened. Neither do I. It was the most honest answer he could have given. He returned to Boston that night and went straight to the Moretti estate. Victoria stood in Vincent's old study beneath his portrait wearing black wool and pearls as if she had been expecting him. You look tired, she said. You always say that when someone stops obeying you. Her mouth curved. I say it when men mistake emotion for strength. Dante placed Vincent's letter on the desk. Victoria looked at it, then back at him. For the first time in his memory, her face changed before she chose what it would become. You had no right to go through his things. He was my father. He was my husband. He was leaving. Victoria said nothing. He was going to dissolve the harbor operations, Dante continued. Move the legitimate companies into trust. He was going to free me. Victoria's eyes hardened. Your father was tired. Tired men become sentimental. Did you kill him? The question did not echo. It landed flat and final in the room. Victoria turned toward the window. Outside, Boston glittered beneath winter rain. Your father wanted to make this family ordinary, she said. He wanted to make us free. Freedom is what weak people call loneliness. Dante stared at the back of her head. I gave evidence to the FBI. Victoria turned slowly. There it was. Not fear, not grief, rage. You would destroy your own blood for that little teacher. No, Dante said. I am destroying what you taught me blood meant. Victoria stepped closer to the desk. You think she will love you after this? You think handing over papers will make you clean? Amelia will always remember what you are. I hope she does. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Then you have become even more foolish than your father. Dante looked at Vincent's portrait. Maybe. His phone rang before Victoria could answer. Agent Bennett. Dante picked up. The agent's voice was clipped. We are moving tonight. Stay where you are. Then another call came through. Sheriff Pike. Dante's blood went cold. He answered. The sheriff did not waste time. Your mother's men are back. They cut power to the cabin. Storm took down trees across the road. Dr. Mercer is trying to get there. Dante turned toward Victoria. She watched his face with interest. Pike continued. And your wife is in labor. For 1 second, Dante's world narrowed to nothing but the sound of his own breathing. Victoria smiled faintly. Something wrong? Dante lowered the phone. Federal vehicles swept through the gates outside, headlights cutting across the windows. Doors opened. Men shouted. Agent Bennett's voice carried through the hall. Victoria turned toward the sound. Dante looked at the woman who had built him, broken him, and called it love. For the first time in his life, he did not try to control both fires. He chose one. Arrest her, he said into the phone. Then he ran. Dante ran through this Moretti estate while federal agents poured through the front doors. For most of his life, that house had obeyed him. Men stepped aside when he entered. Staff lowered their eyes. Guards opened doors before his hand reached the handle. Even the walls seemed to understand the weight of his name. That night, nothing obeyed him. Voices crashed through the marble hall. Boots struck the floor. Radios hissed. A chandelier trembled above the foyer as men in dark jackets moved through the rooms Victoria had ruled like a queen who mistook fear for devotion. Dante reached the front steps as Agent Cole Bennett came up through the rain. Behind Bennett, 2 agents led Victoria Moretti out beneath the stone archway. She did not struggle. Of course she did not. Victoria held herself as if the arrest were a social inconvenience, something to be handled by lawyers before morning coffee. Her pearl earrings caught the flashing blue lights. Her silver hair remained perfect. The rain touched her face, but she did not blink. Dante stopped at the bottom step. For one breath, mother and son looked at each other across the space where an empire had just begun to fall apart. Bennett read the charges in a low, steady voice. Racketeering. Witness intimidation, bribery, fraud, conspiracy tied to court manipulation, obstruction connected to federal investigations, further inquiry into the death of Vincent Moretti. Victoria listened as if someone were reading a menu she did not like. When Bennett finished, she looked only at Dante. You will regret making yourself small. Dante could hear the old command beneath the words. The voice that had shaped him since childhood. The voice that had taught him softness was danger, love was leverage, and family was something to be preserved even if every person inside it had to bleed. He thought of his father's letter. He thought of Amelia alone in a cabin with no power, rain turning to ice against the windows, their daughter forcing her way into a world that had already tried to claim her. He stepped closer. No, he said. I regret how long I mistook you for something large. Something moved across Victoria's face then. Not pain, not shame. A sharp flash of insult. That was all she had left. Bennett guided her toward the federal car. Victoria did not look back when the door closed. Dante was already moving. The drive to Bar Harbor should have taken hours. It felt longer and shorter than time had any right to be. Rain hammered the windshield until the road became a dark ribbon broken by headlights and storm water. His phone stayed connected to Sheriff Pike until the signal failed, then returned, then failed again. Roads are bad, Pike said through a crackle of static. Trees down on the coastal route. Dr. Mercer is with her now. How is Amelia? She is scared. The answer hit harder than any medical detail. Dante gripped the steering wheel. And the baby. coming whether the weather approves or not. Dante pressed the car faster through the rain. Every mile brought back a memory he did not want, but deserved. Amelia at the classroom window, smiling as children held up paper whales. Amelia in the kitchen, laughing when he burned pancakes and tried to blame the pan. Amelia in the nursery, one hand over her stomach, watching him leave after another phone call he had called necessary. Amelia in the bedroom doorway with the suitcase in her hand. Let go of me, Dante. He had let go that night because she demanded it. Now the whole world seemed to be teaching him what that sentence meant. Let go of control. Let go of the throne. Let go of the belief that love became safer when held tightly. His phone rang again. Grace. He answered at once. Where are you? She asked. On the road. If you get there and she tells you to leave, you leave. I know. No, Dante. You hear me, but I need to know you understand me. She is in labor. She is vulnerable. Do not walk into that room like you own any part of it. Rain blurred the road ahead. Dante slowed as a fallen branch appeared across one lane. I understand. Grace was quiet for half a breath. She loved you so much it made her doubt herself. Do not make that happen again. Dante swallowed. I won't. You don't get to promise. You get to prove. The line went dead. By the time Dante reached the road to the cabin, the storm had turned wild. Wind shoved against the car. Pine branches whipped in the headlights. The last half-mile was blocked by a fallen tree. Dante left the car on the roadside and ran. Mud sucked at his shoes. Rain soaked through his coat. His breath burned in his chest. In the distance, through the dark line of trees, he saw light. Not electricity. Lantern light. The cabin came into view like a small, stubborn heart beating against the storm. Sheriff Pike stood on the porch with a flashlight in one hand and a shotgun resting against the wall beside him. He turned when Dante climbed the steps. You alone? Yes. No men hiding in the trees. No. No gun. Dante opened his coat slowly. Pike looked him over, then nodded once. She knows you are here. Dante looked at the door. Inside, Amelia cried out. The sound tore through him. He moved without thinking one step toward the door. Pike's hand came up against his chest. Not like that. Dante stopped. The old Dante would have pushed past him. The old Dante would have treated every closed door as an insult. This Dante stood in the storm with rain running down his face and forced his hands to stay open. Dr. Mercer opened the door a moment later. Her sleeves were rolled. Her gray hair had slipped from its pins. She looked at Dante once and decided not to be impressed. You the husband? Yes. Right now that means very little. She gets to decide if you come in. Dante nodded. Dr. Mercer turned her head. Amelia, he is at the door. For a moment there was only rain wind and Amelia's breathing from inside the cabin. Then her voice came strained and low. Tell him to stand where I can see him. Dr. Mercer looked back at Dante. You heard her. He entered slowly. The cabin smelled of rain, wood smoke, sweat, and something sharp from Dr. Mercer's medical bag. Lanterns burned on the table and near the bed. Ruthie Bell stood by the stove boiling water with the expression of a woman who would fight God himself if the timing annoyed her. Cal was outside with Pike keeping watch. Amelia was on the bed propped against pillows, hair damp at her temples, face pale with pain. Her nightgown clung to her shoulders. One hand gripped the blanket. The other rested over the high, tight curve of her belly. She looked at Dante, not softly, not with welcome, with need, fear, anger, and exhaustion all tangled together. Dante stopped near the wall. Tell me where to stand, he said. Amelia closed her eyes through another contraction. Dr. Mercer counted softly. Ruthie wiped Amelia's forehead with a cloth. When the pain passed, Amelia opened her eyes again. There, she whispered. By the chair. Dante moved to the chair. No closer. His whole body hurt with the effort of staying still. Another contraction took her. Amelia bent forward with a sound that shattered him. He wanted to go to her. He wanted to take her hand, lift her into his arms, carry her through the storm command, the road to open, and the hospital to appear. Instead, he stayed where she had placed him. Dr. Mercer glanced at him. Maybe approval, maybe warning. With that woman, it was hard to tell. Hours folded into breath-pain rain and lantern light. The storm shook the cabin. The windows rattled. The ocean roared somewhere beyond the trees. Ruthie moved between stove and bed. Dr. Mercer stayed calm in the center of it all, voice firm and warm, guiding Amelia through each wave. Dante stood by the chair until his legs ached. Once Amelia looked at him with tears running into her hair. "I can't," she whispered. Dante's throat closed. He looked at Dr. Mercer. The doctor nodded once. Only then did he step closer. He did not touch Amelia. He lowered himself beside the bed. "You can," he said. "Not because you have to be strong. Because you are not alone." Amelia's mouth twisted with pain. "I was alone." The words landed where they were meant to. Dante bowed his head. "I know." Her hand searched blindly against the blanket. He saw it, but still waited until her fingers caught his. Then he held on. Not tight. Never tight. She gripped him hard enough to hurt. "Don't make me regret needing you," she said. Dante's eyes burned. Never again. Dr. Mercer's voice cut through the moment. "Save the vows for after the baby. Amelia, look at me. She is coming now." The world narrowed to Amelia's hand in his Dr. Mercer's calm instructions, Ruthie praying under her breath, the storm striking the walls, and then a cry. Small, fierce, alive. Dante stopped breathing. Dr. Mercer lifted the baby into the lantern light. A daughter. Their daughter. Red-faced, furious, perfect, announcing herself to the storm like she had no intention of being ignored by anyone. Amelia sobbed. Dante covered his mouth with one hand, but it did nothing to stop him from breaking. Dr. Mercer placed the baby on Amelia's chest. The cabin changed. Not in a magical way. The storm still raged. The power was still out. The road was still blocked. Victoria's shadow still waited outside the reach of the lanterns. But the child's cry entered the room and made every other power seem temporary. Amelia held her daughter with trembling hands. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi, Lily." Dante looked at her. "Lily." Amelia nodded, tears on her cheeks. Lily Rose Hartwell Moretti. He heard the order of the names. He understood. His daughter belonged first to the woman who had protected her before anyone else had believed she needed protection. "She's beautiful," he said. Amelia looked down at the baby. "She's free." Dante lowered his head until his forehead touched the edge of the mattress, far from the baby, far from Amelia's body, close enough to show reverence and nothing else. "Yes," he whispered. "She is." By dawn, the storm had softened to gray rain. Dante sat on the floor near the stove with Lily bundled in his arms. Dr. Mercer had allowed it after Amelia nodded. Ruthie slept in a chair, mouth open, one hand still holding a towel. Sheriff Pike and Cal were outside clearing branches from the path. Lily was impossibly small against Dante's chest. He had held guns, contracts, enemies, and wealth in his hands. None of it had ever made him afraid like this. The baby opened one eye. Dante leaned closer. "I know," he whispered. "I have a lot to answer for." Lily made a tiny sound and turned her face toward the blanket. Dante looked at Amelia. She was watching him from the bed, exhausted and pale, but awake. "I am going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never have to disappear to be heard," he said. Amelia did not answer right away. Outside, gulls began calling over the wet trees. "I don't forgive you today," she said. Dante nodded. "I know. I don't know when I will. I know. I don't even know if I want to." His chest tightened, but he kept his voice steady. "Then I will not ask." That was the first morning of Lily's life. It was not a reunion. It was not a happy ending dressed in rainwater and tears. It was a beginning made of exhaustion, ruined trust, and one sleeping child who had no idea how many people had already tried to decide the shape of her future. 3 weeks later, Victoria Moretti sat in a federal detention facility awaiting trial. Her lawyers moved quickly, but Agent Bennett moved faster. Serena Whitlock signed a sworn statement admitting the staged encounter, the payments, and the false pregnancy claim. Grant Bellamy came under investigation for misconduct and conspiracy connected to the custody filing. Governor Whitlock denied knowledge of everything with the wounded expression of a man who had practiced innocence in mirrors. The emergency custody petition collapsed before it could become a weapon. Dante signed everything Evelyn Shaw put in front of him. Primary custody to Amelia. Medical decision-making to Amelia. Residence control to Amelia. Protection orders that applied equally to Victoria's associates and any Moretti employee who contacted Amelia without permission. Financial support for Lily through a trust managed outside Dante's personal control. No conditions. No clauses hidden like knives. No language that asked Amelia to trade safety for gratitude. When Evelyn handed Amelia the documents at Dr. Mercer's clinic, Amelia read them twice. Then she looked at Dante, who stood near the door with his hands in his coat pockets. "You're not fighting me." His face shifted. "I already did," he said. "That was the worst thing I ever did." Evelyn Shaw watched him with the expression of a woman who trusted paper more than repentance. "Supervised visitation begins when my client approves the schedule," she said. Dante nodded. "Of course." Amelia held Lily against her shoulder. The baby slept through all of it, warm and unaware. Dante looked at his daughter but did not step closer. That restraint had become the language he was learning. After that, Dante rented a small apartment above an old bait shop near the harbor. The whole town talked. Ruthie told Amelia the news while pouring tea at the diner. "He looks ridiculous carrying groceries," she said. Amelia looked up from Lily's blanket. "Why?" "Because he holds a paper bag like it might confess something." Amelia almost smiled. Dante did not move into the cabin. He did not ask. He did not send furniture. He did not offer to buy the bait shop, the diner, the road, the weather, or anyone's silence. He learned ordinary things badly, then better. The car seat defeated him twice before Cal took pity and showed him how the straps worked. He burned soup in a pot so thoroughly Ruthie threatened to call it a crime against vegetables. He arrived 7 minutes early for Lily's first doctor appointment and waited outside until Amelia opened the door. He changed diapers with the concentration of a man defusing a bomb. He learned that Lily liked being rocked near the window but hated being patted too firmly. He learned that Amelia needed quiet after court calls. He learned not to ask if she was all right when her hands shook after seeing a black SUV. He learned to say, "What do you need right now?" and accept the answer, even when the answer was space. Some days, Amelia let him stay for dinner. Some days, she did not open the door. Dante never argued. That was harder than apologies. The old life continued to die behind him. Federal hearings opened. Men who had sworn loyalty began making deals. Harbor contracts were frozen. Moretti companies were audited, seized, divided, sold. Newspapers printed Dante's name beside words like cooperation and organized crime and empire in collapse. Once an old associate came to Bar Harbor and waited outside the bait shop. Dante found him leaning against a black sedan coat collar turned up against the ocean wind. "Boston is bleeding," the man said. "Good." The man smiled as if he had not heard. "You can still fix this. Men are nervous. Your mother will not hold the family from a cell. Your father's name still means something." Dante looked past him at the harbor. Fishing boats rocked against their lines. Gulls wheeled over the gray water. Somewhere behind him above the bait shop, Lily's small socks were drying near a radiator. "My father's name means more now that I know he tried to walk away." The man's smile vanished. "You think this town makes you clean?" "No." "Then what are you doing here?" Dante stepped closer. "Learning how not to be useful to men like you." The associate left before sunset. Dante told Amelia about it that night. Not because she asked, because secrets had once been the rooms where their marriage went to die. She listened while Lily slept in a basket near the stove. "Did you want to go back?" Amelia asked. Dante took his time answering. "Yes." Her face closed. He continued before fear could harden into something else. "I wanted the familiarity, not the power. That is worse, maybe. There is comfort in knowing exactly what kind of monster people expect you to be." Amelia looked at him for a long moment. "And now I want to be late for all the wrong meetings because our daughters spit up on my shirt." Against her will, Amelia laughed. It was small. It changed the room anyway. Months passed. Snow melted into mud. Mud gave way to spring grass along the paths near the cabin. The harbor turned blue in the mornings. Tourists began returning to Bar Harbor with cameras, rain jackets, and no understanding of how different a town could feel when it had kept you alive through winter. Amelia started teaching art classes at the library twice a week. She brought Lily in a sling against her chest, and the children whispered around the baby as if she were a museum piece. Miss Hartwell returned slowly. Not as she had been before Dante. Not as Mrs. Moretti. Something else. Someone with scars and steady hands. Someone who could tell a child that a crooked line still belonged in the picture. She painted again at night after Lily slept. At first only small things. The curve of a pine branch, a chipped blue mug. Lily's hand wrapped around her finger. Then larger canvases came. A woman standing before an open door. A city behind glass. A storm breaking over black water while one small cabin held its light. Dante saw the paintings only when she allowed it. He never asked what they meant. He had learned that not every locked place was a prison. Some were boundaries. Some were healing. Amelia went to therapy in a small office above the pharmacy. Dante drove her when she asked and waited in the car with Lily. He never asked what she talked about. After each session, he offered tea, silence, or the long way home. One afternoon, she got into the car and said, "I hated you today." Dante kept his hands on the wheel. "Okay. That's all you have to say." "What do you need me to say?" She looked out the window. Rain moved lightly over the windshield. "I don't know. Then I can sit with it." She turned toward him. The old Dante would have defended himself. He would have reminded her of what he had given up, what he had signed, what he had risked. He would have needed his pain acknowledged before he could make room for hers. This Dante sat quietly while their daughter slept in the back seat. Amelia looked away before tears could fall. "Drive home," she said. He did. Lily's first birthday came with bright sun and too much cake. Grace drove up from Portland with gifts, balloons, and an emotional speech she claimed not to have prepared. Ruthie made enough food for 40 people, though only 16 came. Cal carved Lily a little wooden boat with her name on the side. Dr. Mercer gave her a stuffed seal and told Dante he still looked nervous holding birthday candles. Sheriff Pike stood near the porch steps with a paper plate and watched everyone the way he always did, as if threats might apologize before entering. Dante stood a few feet from Amelia while Lily smashed cake into both fists. For once, Amelia did not feel watched by him. She felt accompanied. There was a difference, and her body recognized it before her mind did. That evening, after everyone left, Dante helped clean the cabin kitchen. Lily slept in her crib, one hand curled above her head. Amelia washed frosting from a plate. Dante dried it. A simple thing. Water, soap, cotton towel. Quiet. Once she had imagined a life like this and hated herself for wanting something so ordinary from a man built by violence. Now the ordinary stood between them not as a dream, but as work. Dante placed the plate on the shelf. Amelia. She looked at him. He took a folded paper from his coat pocket and set it on the counter. Her body went cold before her eyes understood. What is that, an offer? She stepped back. From who? Old associates in Boston. They want me to return. They say the family needs a name people still fear. Amelia stared at the paper. For a moment the cabin disappeared. She was back in the penthouse, back in the nursery, back in a world where every quiet thing could become a threat. Dante saw it. He picked up the letter, tore it in half, then tore it again. He dropped the pieces into the trash. No speech, no plea, no dramatic promise. Just paper falling where it belonged. Then he turned back to the sink. I told Lily I'd take her to see the seals tomorrow morning. Low tide is at 9. Amelia stood very still. The fear did not vanish, but it did not own the room either. Dante. He looked at her. You wanted to go back. He did not lie. For 10 seconds. And then I remembered she laughs when the gulls steal food from people. I remembered you sleep better when the windows are open. I remembered I know how to make her bottle at 2 in the morning without turning on the bright light. He swallowed. I remembered my life is here because I choose it, not because I lost the other one. Amelia looked at the trash, then at him. That was the answer I needed. Dante nodded once. He did not move toward her. That night, after Lily woke and cried and settled again, Amelia stood in the doorway of the room Dante used when he stayed late to help. He was folding a tiny sweater with clumsy concentration. You can stay, she said. He went still. On the couch, she added, a small smile touched his mouth. The couch is generous. It is old and terrible. I have earned old and terrible. She almost smiled back. 2 years after the night Amelia walked out of the Argent Room, Dante took her back to Boston. Only once. Not to the penthouse. It had been sold. Not to the Moretti estate. It remained tied up in federal proceedings. Its gates closed, its rooms empty of command. Not to any restaurant where candlelight could make lies look romantic. He took her to the Dorchester School. The building looked smaller than he remembered. The paint on the front doors had been touched up. Children's artwork filled the hallway windows. A paper banner announced the spring art fair in crooked letters. Amelia stood in the classroom doorway with Lily on her hip. The room smelled like crayons, glue, and washable paint. She looked at Dante. This is unfair. His brow tightened. I can take you somewhere else. No. Her voice softened. I mean, you knew exactly where my heart still lived. Dante looked down. I learned from the best teacher I know. She rolled her eyes, but her mouth betrayed her with the beginning of a smile. Inside the classroom, paper stars hung from the ceiling again. New ones, made by new children. The tables were scarred with years of scissors, pencils, spilled paint, and small hands pressing too hard. Dante set a small box on the table. Amelia's breath caught. Dante, it is not a demand. She stared at the box. It feels like one. Then I will put it away. He reached for it. She stopped him with one look. He stepped back. Lily babbled and pulled at Amelia's hair. Dante opened the box. Inside was the plain gold ring, the old one. The ring Amelia had left on his desk beside the sonogram and the letter. Dante did not pick it up. "I don't want to own your—" "Yes," he said. "I don't even want to ask for it unless you know your no would be safe." Amelia's eyes filled, but she did not let the tears fall. "That is the first proposal you should have made. I know. You broke me in places you did not mean to touch. I know. And meaning it less does not make it hurt less. I know." She looked at the ring, then at the classroom windows where late afternoon light fell across the tables. "What are you asking for?" Dante took a breath. "A life where you are never managed, never spoken for, never asked to shrink so my name can seem larger. A life where Lily grows up knowing her mother was not saved by a man, but believed by one who finally learned how to listen." Amelia closed her eyes. When she opened them, she was not the woman who had first said yes in that room. She was not the woman who had run through rain with a suitcase. She was not only a mother, not only a wife, not only a survivor. She was herself. "We do this differently," she said, "every day. No secrets, no locked rooms. No one speaks for me, not even me. If I say stop, you stop. If you say go, I go. If I need time, you do not punish me with silence. I wait in the light." A tear slid down her cheek. Lily reached out and patted it with clumsy fingers. Amelia laughed through the tears. Then she picked up the ring. Dante did not touch her hand until she offered it. That was how she knew. Not because everything was healed, because the choice was hers. Their wedding was small and windblown, held on a hill above the Bar Harbor coast. No politicians came. No men in black suits guarded the road. No photographers waited for a scandal. No marble halls tried to swallow the sound of laughter. Grace cried before the vows again and denied it again. Ruthie brought too much food and threatened anyone who called it too much. Cal wore a suit that looked older than Dante and somehow more honorable. Dr. Mercer sat in the front row holding Lily, who had one shoe on and one shoe missing. Sheriff Pike found the missing shoe in his coat pocket and refused to explain how it got there. The ocean moved behind them, gray-blue and restless. The wind lifted Amelia's hair as she walked toward Dante. He stood waiting in a dark suit, not like a king, not like a man expecting the world to step aside. Like a man grateful he had been allowed to stand there at all. Amelia reached him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she said softly, "I did not come back to the man who lost me." Dante's eyes shone. "I know. I came back to the man who learned how to let me be free." He took her hand carefully. "Not to claim, to meet." Lily laughed from Dr. Mercer's arms as if the whole thing had been arranged for her entertainment. The wind moved across the hill. The sea kept breathing. Somewhere far away, Boston continued without them, full of towers, old debts, and men still mistaking fear for loyalty. But here there was no throne, no empire, no locked door, only a woman who had once vanished to save herself, a man who had learned love could not be commanded, and a child born in a storm who would never have to wonder whether freedom belonged to her. Dante lifted Amelia's hand and kissed her knuckles. Not like possession, like a promise. Amelia smiled at him through the wind. This time she did not disappear. She stayed because the door was open.